So now that we're all here, oh, the other thing I suppose you could use if you want a little bit of something in between, a block will work too. I'll give you suggestions about what we'll do, but like the balls are the better ones. The blanket is too, but for the armpit thing that we're going to do, the block could work as well. All right, so today I'm going to go ahead and mute you all. Um, all right. So today we're really focused on this idea of slowing down so that we can be present, so that we can see what's going on. So I thought we would do some myofascial release work. We'll do some very, very gentle yoga type shapes, and then we'll end with a bit of breath work and a seated posture. So that's just so we have a heads up of what we're doing. The first thing we're going to start with is, though, grabbing our blanket. And so once you unroll your blanket, you've got two options. If you do it the long way, it's going to make a smaller roll. If you do it the wide way, it's going to make a more dense roll. So you choose which option works best for you. Today, I am going to choose to start with the long, wide roll, but you can also do the other roll. It just will change what you're feeling as we go along. So we're going to make our blanket roll, and then we're going to put it off to the side. And once you've got that sorted, go ahead and lie down at the top of your space. Stack your forearms right on top of each other and put your head on your forearms. Then take your feet, and you'll separate your feet about hip distance apart. And then notice once you find yourself in that heads up, 7-up position, if you need to shimmy your pelvis a little bit right to left. Notice if you want to have your toes turn towards each other, flat on the floor, or maybe even turn out and away from each other. And then we're just going to take a couple of moments to just take in a couple of breaths, to take in the feedback that we are getting from the floor, to take in the feedback that we're getting from our bodies. I've been paying particular attention this week to this notion of feedback because sometimes I feel like I'm open to it and sometimes I feel like I'm not. And I think in most cases, when I'm more receptive to it, it's because my nervous system has had the opportunity to slow down. I've had the opportunity to really just check in and see what's going on with me. So while you're here with yourself, I do encourage you to just notice, where does it feel like the breath freely goes? Where do you notice that maybe there's a bit of restriction? Do you notice that if you can soften around your shoulders and around the front of your chest, maybe the belly can inflate with more breath, maybe the low back can inflate with more breath. Maybe if you soften around your jaw, your throat will relax, maybe the breath will deepen. Good morning, Robin. Robin, today, do you have any type of ball? Perfect. Is that dense or is it like squishy like this one? It's more like this one. Okay. Also grab a blanket and or a towel, maybe 2 blankets, depending. And then we're just starting in heads up, 7-up. Awesome. When you're ready, let's go ahead and start to release your hands. Bring your hands alongside your ribs. And then press yourself up to sit. At this point, we're going to grab our blanket roll, and you're going to put your blanket roll on your lap. If you would like a block underneath your forehead because the floor is too far away, that's fine. Otherwise, you're going to put the blanket on the top of your hips, lift your ribs up and over your blanket, and allow yourself to come forward. You might find that once you find yourself here, that block being underneath your forehead is fantastic because it brings the floor closer to you. You can also just put your head on the floor if that works. And then the arms are just somewhere where it feels comfortable as you have this compression happening into your abdominal region. And if you had made the smaller blanket roll, it feels like for me, it creates a lot more spaciousness in my low back. If you have the more dense blanket roll, it feels like there's a lot of stuff there that you then have to sort of soften around. So whichever one you've got going on, just notice what's happening right here in this moment. Notice the thoughts that might be coming up, the feelings, the sensations, and see if you can just deepen your breath. Allow yourself to settle into this moment. And the more that you do, notice what does begin to open up or what begins to change, to soften, to yield. And you've got about 3 or 4 more breath cycles here. And at the end of your third or fourth exhalation, we're going to slowly start to walk yourself up and out of the shape. Cool. And then you just sit tall for a moment. Just notice what you notice. Great. Okay. Now this is where we'll get to do our choose your own adventure. If you've got the blanket roll, you can start with the blanket roll. That's an wonderful opportunity. If you've got the squishy ball, this is the next intense thing. So that's our second option. This ball is the most intense option. And then the block is probably somewhere between the balls. So you're going to choose based upon our initial setting. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is just go ahead and extend, I'm guessing, your right arm forward. You're going to lie down on whatever your prop of choice is, and it's going to be underneath your happy armpit. And it's actually a little bit higher than your armpit. And, you know, depending upon how long your neck is, you might hold your head with your hand. You might just let your head relax down onto your underneath arm. Now, the first thing that you're going to do is just soften and breathe. And if you just get here and you're like, yeah, Jessica, this blanket is absolutely nothing. I don't feel a thing. Feel free to try one of the other props. What you'll do is you'll just find yourself here, and some of you will bring your left hand in front of you as like a little happy kickstand. And then you'll slowly roll your chest forward more towards the floor, and you'll find a spot where it's like, oh, wow, that's fun. And then you're just going to pause and you're going to breathe. And then when you're ready, you might start to roll back towards the back of your body. And again, you'll find a spot and you'll pause and you'll breathe. And so we're targeting some of the muscles. Maybe you'll start to feel the part where your latissimus dorsi comes into your arm. Some of you might feel your pecs. You might even start to feel some of your serratus, depending upon how low you've placed that blanket. And you just pour that prop and you'll just pause and you'll breathe. And after you've done, I don't know, about 4 or 5 breaths here, you might find a spot where you just want to stay. And then when you're ready, you're going to slowly come out and you're going to move your prop a little bit further down. So if you've got that blanket roll, you just take a quarter turn of it. If you've got the ball, you move it down. If you've got the block, you'll have to come up a little bit so that you can move the block down. And again, you'll just do the same thing, moving a little forward, moving a little back, finding a spot to breathe, finding a spot to pause. And you'll notice, well, you might notice, depending upon the density of the tool that you're working with, it mitigates or it influences rather the amount of feedback your body is getting. It changes how intense this may or may not feel to you. So again, if you're using a block and you're like, well, that's too much, maybe you go to a squishy ball if you have it. If you're like using the block and you're like, that's not enough, maybe you use your tennis ball. But again, you're just paying attention. What's happening here and now? All right. We'll take 2 more breath cycles, doing whatever you're doing. Maybe you just come to stillness and breathe into your underside body. Fantastic. Then from there, we'll start to come out. You're going to move it down just a little bit. So again, as long as we're all still working with that blanket roll, we're fine. You don't really need to change it. Now, I notice that once I come a little further down, it feels like I'm just below the breast tissue and right underneath the ribs where my serratus anterior really are very active. So some of you might feel this quite a bit. Um, and again, we're doing the same thing, maybe rolling a little forward, maybe rolling a bit back. If you find a spot where it feels knotty, go ahead and stay there for a couple of breaths and see if you can let the body soften around it. I did not mention this earlier, so I'll mention this now. If you feel like your Y angle in your hips is quite a bit, you have a block, you have that other blanket, you can go ahead and place either one of them between your inner thighs, and it just gives you a little bit of support there. And then again, we're pausing, we're breathing, and we're seeing what we see. Great. And you can go as far forward or back as you want. The further forward you go, it changes the sensation, and the further back you go, it changes the sensation. For me, I feel pretty good in the midline today, but that changes from day to day. All right, let's go ahead and pause, and we'll come out. We're going to slowly roll that blanket roll if we're still using it a little further down. So now we might be, I don't know, where our front ribs start to separate, and now we're into our floating ribs on the back body. So again, moving a little forward and moving a little back, and we're slowly now working our way down. So especially as you roll your body backwards, you might feel more of the lats. You might also start to feel your quadratus lumborum or the top of your psoas when you come forward. So you're just pausing and you're breathing and you're pausing and you're breathing. And I guess when I'm saying pausing here, you could be moving, but just mindfully and slowly. All right, let's go ahead and come out of that and take that blanket roll a little further down. So now you might be really in the belly side of the space between your ribs and your hips. And again, maybe you roll a little forward. Now you'll really start to feel the top insertion of your psoas as you come forward here. And you might feel more of your quadratus lumborum as you roll back. And you just pause and you breathe. And especially those of you that experience a lot of low back discomfort, just notice how this one is working for you. A lot of times, especially those of us that are chronically sitting, the muscles in the front of the pelvis, so your psoas, your hip flexors, those can get really tight and short. And then the muscles in the back might be overstretched, or I don't know, maybe we have some weird posture where we're crunching those muscles too. All right, let's go ahead and come to stillness. And then the last one, you'll roll it one more time. So now it really feels like it is at the top of your hip bone. And again, maybe rolling forward and back. And you might just pause and breathe and stay in one spot. You might still roll your spine more towards the floor in front of you or more towards the floor behind you. It's completely up to you. Awesome. Well, we'll just take a moment to pause and be still wherever we are. If you've got something between your legs, go ahead and release that. And then you're going to roll onto your belly, onto that blanket if you're still using the blanket roll, or onto the ball if for some reason you were able to do all that on the ball. So now you're on your belly. And you just pause and you breathe and you notice if you notice the difference. So, depending upon where you planted that blanket roll to begin with, you might feel an asymmetry, meaning it's only under one part of your torso. Some of you might have your entire torso over the blanket roll, and either option is okay. You're just noticing what you notice, what's happening in the back body, and what's happening in your breath. When you're ready, you'll plant your forehead on the mat, plant your hands alongside your ribs, come up to hands and knees. And then we're going to go back to our child's pose. You can take that blanket roll and put it back on your pelvis if you'd like, and then roll over. This time, maybe your arms take a different variation. So maybe they come back this time, maybe they reach forward, but just notice what you notice now between your right side and your left side. Notice what's happening in your back, maybe along your tailbone and your sacrum. And you'll take 2 more breath cycles here. And then when you're ready, you'll bring your hands alongside your ribs. You'll press yourself up to sit. And then we're going to try it on the other side. So I just flipped around, but if you want to stay in the same direction, that's completely fine. We'll bring our prop again back in front of us, whichever one we're using, and then we're going to lie down on our left armpit. And it's a little bit above our left armpit pit. Um, and again, maybe you put a block or a blanket or something between your thighs if it feels better on your pelvis to do that. And you may support your head with your arm if that feels comfortable to you. You can also just extend your head alongside your arm and on the floor. And then our right arm can come in front of us as sort of a kickstand. And we can use that to mitigate how much weight we're pouring into our chest as we roll forward and as we roll back. And again, you can use any of the other props if it feels like you want to try that. So you can do the blanket, you can do the block, you can do one of your balls, but you're just paying attention. You'll notice that if you do vary it between sides, the prop usage, I mean, it does change what you're feeling. So you choose what works best for you. And then you'll just take a couple of breaths there. You'll pause. And then when you're ready, you'll come up a little bit. You'll slide your prop down. So now it's maybe more in the belly of your armpit, maybe a little lower than that. And again, you're just rolling a little forward and you're rolling a little bit back. And you're just taking your time. You're noticing what you notice. I don't know about you, but I feel like I don't pay enough attention to my side body. And so when I find those little knotty things that just feel like they literally feel like a knot, I'm like, oh wow, that's fun. And then you just pause and you breathe with it. And sometimes it just immediately releases, and sometimes it just softens a little bit. Okay, let's go ahead and come to stillness. And you're going to take a little sliding of that prop down. So now maybe it's underneath your breast tissue, right underneath your rib cage. And again, you might pause here. You might roll forward and back. You might just slightly roll forward and find a space, or slightly roll back and find a space. It's really kind of fun. I like this particular one in general because it feels like there's a lot of sensation I can feel. The serratus anterior, so those are like the sharky muscles that wrap around from the back of the ribs to the front of the ribs. They're the muscles that you use a lot when you're pushing into plank. Whew, that's fun. You might also feel part of your latissimus dorsi, so the muscle that connects, I think it's roughly from your pelvis up to the upper part of your upper arm. Long muscle there. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and pause and take a sliding down or quarter turn or whatever you're doing, whichever prop you're doing, using that prop and moving it a little closer towards your pelvis. Now you might be where your floating ribs are. And again, maybe you move forward and back, maybe you don't. And you're just pausing, you're noticing what you notice. We've got about 2 or 3 more breath cycles here. Nice job. Go ahead and find yourself into stillness. And we'll move that prop down a little bit more. So now we're probably in the belly between, I guess, the ribs and the hips. And as you come forward, you might feel more of your psoas. As you go back, you might feel more of your QL. So those two muscles, they don't work, they're not the exact same shape, but like one of them's on the front of the body, that's the psoas, and then the quadratus lumborum is more on the back of the body. The psoas goes from your ribs all the way down to the top of your thigh bone. Quadratus lumborum is much shorter than that, but it goes along the back of the body between ribs and hips. Okay, go ahead and take your last two breath cycles here. And then when you're ready, you'll take the final one, drawing it right above your hip bones, so right at the top of the ilium. And again, maybe you roll a little forward and maybe you roll a little back. If I'm going too fast, you just take your time and I'll get the hint. You're just paying attention. What does it feel like in the body? You might have to experiment sometimes. I think the importance of us slowing down is that it does remind us that, every aspect of life, even the parts that seem very familiar to us, are in some sense an exploration, some sense an opportunity to be curious, to ask different questions, to seek different answers. All right, let's go ahead and gently release that. And you're going to make your way onto your abdomen. So you're rolling over that prop. And again, you might have both halves of your torso on the blanket roll. If you're using that, you might only have one half of your torso on that prop. And you just take a couple of breaths and you pause and you breathe and you notice what you notice. Just take 2 more breath cycles here. And then at the end of your next exhalation, you'll go ahead and press yourself up. You'll remove your prop, and then you're going to lie down on your belly once again. I'll have you enter it this way. Okay. Now, when we find ourselves on the belly this time, let's go ahead and come to Sphinx. Draw your right arm behind you and your left arm in front. Your palms will face up like you're trying to give yourself a happy hug. Okay. And then you're going to walk your hands further away from you. You might curl your toes underneath you and start to come forward, maybe to bring your forehead to the floor. If you're like, yeah, my forehead is too far from the floor, please plant that blanket roll or a block underneath you. And we're just trying to find an opening depending upon where your fascia feels like it's tight. You might feel it across the upper back between the shoulder blades. You might feel it on the upper outer arm. I feel mine most acutely on my right arm, no matter whether the right arm is on the front or whether the right arm is in the back. So just pay attention. And then if your mammary region feels like it is in the way, we can also put a blanket underneath our torso so that we have a little bit more space. So you'll just take a couple of breaths here and you'll just notice what you notice. Great. Take one more breath cycle here. And then at the end of your next exhale, you're going to slowly start to come out. Walk the arms back. Uncross the hands. And just you remember which one was behind, and then you're going to take the opposite one. So me, it's my left arm underneath now, right arm. And then you crawl the arms out. You might curl the toes under and sort of steamroll yourself forward again. And you're just noticing if you can find the breath, noticing the sensation that's happening right here, noticing your reactions to any of these sensations. I can't speak for any of you, but I think I find myself become disconnected from the present moment when there's a sense of discomfort or even uncertainty sometimes. And so then I start to rush. I feel compelled to act. However, not knowing why I'm doing what I'm doing and being methodical about it really has the intended impact I would like. So I'm trying to work to become more aware of that. We've got 2 more breath cycles here. And the end of your second exhalation, you'll slowly come back through center. And then go ahead and lie down flat on your abdomen and just notice what you feel when you find yourself flat this time. Maybe you stack your hands underneath your forehead again. Maybe you just bring a cheek to the mat and let your arms do whatever they will. Awesome. All right. Now from here, let's cactus our arms out to the right and to the left. And we're going to try to find a 90-degree angle in our elbows and in our wrists. Go ahead and look towards your right hand. And then you're going to step your right hand underneath your right shoulder and start to roll a bit towards your left. Now, because our elbow and the left is at a 90-degree angle, we're not going to get too far, so that's okay. And then I want you to just notice what happens if you lift your head, if you lower your head, if you press into your front arm, if you press into your back arm. How does that change the sensation that you might be experiencing across the pec, the chest, maybe from your armpit to the center of your breast tissue? Just notice what you notice there. Great. When you're ready, come back through center. We'll try that on the other side. So the right arm is out at that 90-degree angle. You step the left hand underneath the left shoulder. You look to your left, and then you'll slowly press towards the right. And again, just notice what happens if you lift your head. Maybe if you lift your left leg, maybe it's on the floor, maybe it's not. Maybe you press into your left arm, maybe you press into the right arm. Just notice what happens. How does the sensation change? Great. Next in breath, go ahead and come back through center. This time, you're going to extend your right arm out to the right. You're going to turn your palm to face up. So right arm is straight. It's in line with our shoulder. Right arm, our right palm faces up, and then turn to your left. And then start to push into your left hand and then roll to your right. And notice if this is different. Notice if there's more mobility here. Notice how the sensation might change. You might feel a different part of the arm stretch. You might feel more of the rib cage rotate. How does the breath work here? Great. Take 1 more breath cycle here. On your next in-breath, come back through center. Then extend your left arm out to the left. Turn your palm to face the sky. Step your right hand underneath your right shoulder, look to the right, and then start to roll to your left. And then again, just as you did before, notice what happens here. Where is the sensation on the left side of the body? What's happening in terms of the rib cage? What's happening in terms of your breath and the ease of the body? Awesome sauce. Take 2 more breath cycles here. And when you're ready, come back to your belly. Awesome. When you find yourself on your abdomen this time, let's bring our forehead to the mat and then bring your hands to your low back and interlace your fingertips. Now, we're going to do this very differently than we ever do this, so let's listen very closely. Let's separate our feet at least hip distance apart. Go ahead and really activate the legs. So you might lift one leg and then put that foot down so the top of the foot is on the floor. And then you might lift the other leg and then put that foot down so the top of the foot is on the floor. And you'll actively press into your pinky toenails and your big toenails simultaneously. And just notice what that does to the spine. Now, from here, I want you to imagine that for some reason, you are only looking down the front of your body towards your toes. And then you'll draw your shoulders up towards your ears, draw your shoulders together on your back, and then start to reach your heels of your hands, so that one hand back. And you're still looking down the front of your body as you lift your chest up and away from the floor. So the head is dropped down and you're reaching back through the hands. You're pressing down through the tops of the feet. Great. Now, some of you will be happy to stay here. Some of you might want to notice what it feels like if you shift your torso a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left. Some of you might be happy exploring that. Some of you might notice what it feels like to drop your right ear towards your right shoulder. And then maybe drop your left ear to your left shoulder. And some of you might be happy exploring that. Some of you might want to come back to center and feel what it feels like to draw your shoulder blades together on your back and maybe lift your chest up and then maybe extend your head in line with the length of your spine. And you'll just pause and you'll breathe and you'll notice that we really want to engage the shoulder blades on the back of the body. And at the end of your next exhalation, you'll release your hands, you'll bring a cheek to the mat, you'll let the chest soften to the floor and just notice what you notice. Where do you feel heat? Where do you feel spaciousness and or ease? Where do you feel activation? Great. We're going to do that again. So bring your forehead back to the mat. Interlace your hands behind you. This time take the awkward opposite interlace. And then again, make sure your legs are super active. And then when you're ready, you just start to draw shoulders up towards your ears. Draw your shoulder blades on your back. Think of like scrubbing your thumbs down your sacrum as you reach your arms back. And then again, make sure the feet are active. Now, some of you will stay here with the feet on the floor, really pressing the feet onto the floor. Some of you might want to float your legs up and away from the floor. And if you do that, notice what happens in the upper torso. Does it give you the capacity to maybe lift the chest a little bit more? Is your head, do you want to let it drop or do you want to lift it in line with your spine? Do you want to drop an ear to one shoulder and then the other? Do you want to move around almost like you're a shark or something moving through the water? And when you're ready, take your last 2 breath cycles here, and then you'll simply release, dropping the opposite ear to the mat, releasing the arms down to the floor. And you just pause and you breathe. Pause and you breathe. Great. Bring your forehead to the mat, bring your hands alongside your ribs, press yourself up to hands and knees. And then press your sit bones to your heels and then start to walk your hands forward for child's pose sans blanket. So no blanket. And you'll just notice what it feels like now. So with your arms forward, you can come to the tips of your fingertips and press the fingertips down and forward. Draw the back of the pelvis down towards the floor. And just notice what you notice happening here in the lats. Notice what you notice happening here in the low back. Great. All right. If your heels of the hands are touching the floor, lift the heels of the hands away from the floor and come to the tips of your fingers. Go ahead and lift your ears in line with your arms, and then you're going to walk your hands over to your right. When your hands go over to the right, you'll isometrically, so that's without moving, push down and forward through your left hand as you draw down and back with your left hip. Some of you will stay happily here, happy to stay here. Some of you will step your right hand closer to your right knee. You might then plant your left palm onto the floor, and then you might take a slight rotation over to your right. So we're really paying attention to what is happening on our right side body. So that latissimus dorsi going from the arm down through the ribs, maybe to your pelvis. And you're just pausing and you're breathing. And you'll notice if you need to readjust your head so it feels like it's in line with the shape, the energetic line rather. And you just pause and you breathe. When you're ready to come out of that, you walk the right hand back and forward. You walk both hands back through the center, and you just take a couple of breath cycles here in child's pose. Awesome. And then we'll try that on the other side. So go ahead and come to the tips of your fingertips. Lift your ears in line with your arms. Walk your hands towards your left. And then maybe you just stay here, lowering your head towards the floor. Maybe you lower your left palm to the mat. Sorry, step your left hand next to your left knee, lower the right palm to the mat, and then maybe take a slight rotation over to your left. And then notice where your head is. Is your head down to the floor? Are you maybe looking a little bit more towards the left? Doesn't really matter. You're just paying attention to what is working right now for your body. And then where is that sensation moving through you? When you're ready, we'll walk the left hand forward. We'll walk both hands back through the center. And then from here, you'll slowly shift your weight forward and come to hands and knees. Once you find yourself in hands and knees, we're going to find our sad non-California cows. So you're going to drop your belly a lot. You're going to drop your head a lot. And we're going to just stay here for about, I don't know, 4 to 5 breaths. You want to notice if you can really, really let the chest be heavy through the gates of the arms. Let the belly hang like a hammock. Let the sit bones lift. Let the back of the skull sort of drip forward, almost like a fern. And you just pause and you breathe. And you pause and you breathe. Okay. Now from here, you're going to start at the base of your tailbone, and like you're scooping out space, you want to scoop your tailbone down, and then you'll scoop your low belly up, you'll scoop your middle ribs up, you'll scoop your upper ribs up, your shoulder blades will widen on your back, your head will drop even further, and you'll find yourself into your cat pose as you push down into the hands and wide isometrically through the shoulder blades. Great. As you're ready, you're going to start from the tailbone again. So you'll lift sit bones. You'll drop the belly. You'll drop the front ribs. You'll drop the middle ribs. You'll drop the upper ribs. You'll broaden the collarbones forward. You'll reach your throat forward. You'll lift your head forward. And you'll find yourself into cow pose. Great. Now you'll do that 2 more times on your own. And again, you're starting from your butt, slowly rippling all the way forward and through. Just noticing what that feels like. And then when you're ready to go the other way, again, you start from the pelvis and undulate through your spine. Nice. Awesome. Cool. And then after you've done 2 of those, I want you to do whatever organic movement feels good to you. So some of you might want to rest in child's pose. Some of you might want to take a simple twist of the ribs. Some of you might want to shift a little right to left, or even explore for a moment a downward facing dog, finding that extension through the spine. The purpose of us slowing down is so that we can better tap into our intuition, our inner knowing, our inner teacher, as it were. Our Sat Guru is a Sanskrit name for it. My teacher always said that this voice that speaks to us is always very quiet, and its sentences are very short. And so if we're so distracted by things, we can't always hear it. Its message gets lost in the noise of things. Okay, you've got 2 more breath cycles doing whatever you happen to be doing. So if you are in child's pose, by all means, stay and enjoy child's pose. If you're in that down dog, just notice what that feels like. And if you're doing the twist, make sure you visit the other side. Great. And then when we're all ready, we'll meet back onto hands and knees. And then take a moment to curl all 10 toes under, sit your bum back, and we'll sit for a brief bit in toe squat. Now we took a trip around our shoulders, but we didn't do everything. So we're going to bring our right hand back behind us. Your palm will face away from you. And maybe you can walk your hand closer to your face. And then your left hand maybe holds your right elbow. And as you find yourself here, we really want to notice if you can breathe into your back hand. So since your right hand is back there, see if you can really send your breath into the right hand, in between the shoulder blades, if that's where your hand rests. And then from there, you might notice that you can start to allow space to open across the front of your right shoulder. Great. And again, you can be still in the head. If you want to drop an ear to the shoulder, left ear might come over. If your toe squat becomes not so pleasant, you can always stand on your shins. You can also release the tops of your toes to the floor. So you choose whichever option works best for you. And then when we're ready, we'll gently bring the head back to center. Release the right arm, release the left. Just let the arms hang for a moment. And then when you're ready, we'll try the other side. So left hand will come back behind you. Palm will face away. Right hand will hold on to your left elbow. And maybe it helps work the left hand a little higher up. And again, we're just paying attention to breathing into that back space. We don't always breathe into the back of our body, but technically your lungs are more on the back of the body than they are on the front of the body. So you want to breathe into them. And again, if toe squat has become too much, by all means, shift the position. And then when you're ready, you'll gently release right arm and left arm. At this point, you'll probably come forward, have a happy little temper tantrum, tops of the feet on the floor, little pitter patters. Okay. All right. And then we're going to move on. So if you're using blocks, we'll maybe bring them outside of our hands. And then we're going to grab our blanket roll. And for this one, the more tight or the more small the blanket roll is, the more intense it'll be on the backs of your calves. So if you don't want that, I would encourage you to unroll it and go back to the bigger one. And then we, again, want to nicely, neatly, compactly roll it towards it. So we haven't done this in a while, so if this isn't fun for you, you're in good company. It wasn't fun for me either. We're going to bring our forehead to the mat, and then we're going to tuck our blanket roll to the backs of our knees. And then from there, you'll start to sit up. And if this shape does not work for you because it's too much compression for your knees, we do have that ball. You do have a block. You could put the ball on the block and roll it like this because it's the same type of thing. Great. All right. So we're all in our calf smasher pose. All right. So per usual, you might just stay still. You might stay centered and be like, yep, this is a lot. I'm good. You might shift a little bit to right to left. And note that where your torso is in relationship to where your pelvis is changes how you feel this. So coming a little forward with the torso changes it versus going a little further back. So you can mitigate that for you. And then, of course, being still versus shifting right to left also changes what you're feeling. So as long as you're breathing, that's all that matters. Great. We'll take 1 to 2 more breath cycles here. And then we'll release that. We'll take a quarter turn of your blanket. So now we're bending it back. And again, you can be still. You can shift a little right to left. You can lean forward on your blocks a little bit. You can lean back a little bit, but just pay attention to what you're noticing in your body. I also notice there's an asymmetry. Like my right is more tight than my left. There's like a fun little knot that's there. And just notice what's happening in your body. Is that true for you? Do you have one side that feels like it's a piece of cake? The other one feels like a piece of rock? Okay, go ahead and come to stillness. Go ahead and take one more turn of that blanket. So now it's closer to our heels. And again, you might shift a little right to left. You might not. Great. We're just pausing and breathing. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and come out of that. So we're going to step our blocks to the side for just a moment. We're going to come forward onto hands and knees, and then just send your left leg back with your left toes on the floor and curled under. You might pulse forward and back a few times. You might hear some popping of your ankles. You might feel a stretch across the back of your calf. Awesome sauce. Let's go ahead and bend that knee and switch to the other side. So now sending your right foot back, curling the toes under, and again, pulsing a little forward and back. Great. Let's go ahead and come back to center. This time, send your left leg back again. Curl the toes under. And I want you to scoop your front body away from the floor like you did when we had that blanket roll there, and lift the left leg parallel to the floor. So now we've got some activation happening on the back of our leg. If you're happy to stay here, you can stay here. Maybe just point and flex the back foot, maybe circle the ankle, totally fine. Some of you might want to up the ante a little bit, and you'll reach your right arm forward parallel to the floor in opposition. And if we're doing that, we're really pressing down into our left hand. We're really pushing down into our right shin. We're scooping our belly away from the floor as we extend out through our fingers and our toes. Great. When you're ready, the right hand will come back to the floor. You'll lower the left toes down to the floor and then draw the left foot out to the left. So your left toes are in line with your right knee. Now at this point, you might lower your forearms down to the floor. You might lower your forearms down to a block. You might reach your arms forward for Anahatasana, half puppy pose, or I guess it's technically a puppy pose, but your legs are doing something different. And you're just going to take a couple of breaths to pause and breathe. The concern here, or the major focus, is the inside edge of your left thigh. And you'll notice that if your pelvis shifts a little further back, that might change what you feel on the inside edge of your left leg. And so you just mitigate that for you. And then when you're ready, you'll bring your hands underneath your shoulders. You'll step your left leg in to meet the right, and then just take a cat or a cow and just notice what that feels like. And then when you're complete with that, come back to center, come back to neutral. We'll slide our right leg back, curl the toes under, and then float that right leg parallel to the floor. And again, we're scooping all the muscles away from, or the abdominal organs away from the floor. And you might stay here and just point and flex that right foot. You might extend your left arm forward in opposition. If you've taken that option, again, we're pressing down to the right hand, the left shin. We're scooping the low belly away from the floor. We're sending our inner right thigh up to the sky as you reach forward through your left thumb. And just check and make sure your head is in line with your spine. And then when you're ready, you lower the left hand. You lower the right toes. You draw the right foot out to the right toes in line with your left knee. And then start to shift your pelvis back a smidge as you maybe lower the forearms to the floor or the blocks in front of you. You might also reach your arms forward for that puppy pose. And you just take a couple of breaths here. What's happening on the inner edge of that right leg? Our body's fascinating because technically, because it's a tensegrity unit, every part of the body impacts another part of the body through the fascial chain. And that's really interesting. So just attending to one thing in one part of the body has this fun ripple effect across other parts of the body. It's kind of like when we pay attention to our breathing, how it impacts our mind, how that impacts our emotions, how that impacts how we show up in our relationships and see the world and others see us. Very fascinating. Well, I find it fascinating. All right, when you're ready, we'll bring our hands underneath our shoulders, and then you'll go ahead and step your right foot in. From here, we're going to curl our hands forward or crawl our hands forward about 6 to 12 inches. Curl both sets of toes under, then lift your pelvis up and back to your downward facing dog. Once you find yourself in your down dog, I want you to notice what it feels like if you bend one knee and then the other. And so you'll do that a few times and you'll just notice what that feels like. And then notice what it feels like if you lift the toes up of one foot and lift the toes up of another foot. What does that change in your shape? And after you've explored that, maybe what it feels like if you shift your pelvis a little to the right, or you shift your pelvis a little to the left. And then notice what it feels like maybe if you come forward a little bit more towards your hands or go back a little bit more towards your feet. All of it's an exploration. And then once you've done that, you'll just find whatever feels like the most appropriate position for you. And you'll just take 3 breaths. And you'll find the solidity, the stability of being in your body, of being fully present in your life and your experiences and your relationships, and just notice that. And then as you're ready, we're going to bend our knees. You're going to cross your ankles and then sit back on your bum. Awesome. And then let's go ahead and find Sukhasana, so easy sitting pose. And we want to make sure our knees are roughly over our ankles. And we're going to do both sides, so it doesn't really matter which one is in front. Let's see what most of you seem to have. You mostly have your left, so okay, we'll stay with our left. Okay, and then from here, let's go ahead and bring our left hand to the left. We'll bring our right hand to our left knee. Go ahead and inhale, lift up through the spine, and then we're going to rotate towards our left. So again, like we have that blanket roll underneath our left ribs, we're scooping the spine away. We're rotating towards the left. And you might soften the gaze or close the eyes completely here. And then imagine that you could see out the back of your skull. So instead of your eyeballs just looking forward, maybe they look back. And then notice that with your eyeballs looking back, you can start to turn the back of your head towards the front of your space. And so notice what that does. And again, you might stay here happy as a clam. You might twist more towards your left. Great. On your next in-breath, go ahead and gently unwind, come back through center. Switch the cross of your ankles. Okay, and then right hand out towards the right, left hand on top of right knee. Again, inhale, lift up through center. And then as you exhale, we're going to scoop the belly on the right side and we rotate our ribs towards the right. And again, you might soften your gaze or close your eyes completely. And then bringing your awareness to your eyeballs and imagining the eyeballs stop backwards as well as frontwards. But now we're just looking at the back of our skull towards the front of our space. And then you might use that as the ability to turn a little bit more to the right or stay exactly as you are. But again, just notice what's happening in the breath. What do you feel happening maybe from your left shoulder across the back of the body, maybe towards your right hip? Awesome. Next in breath, come back through center and unwind. We'll keep the legs as they are for now. Reach up through your left arm. Then we're going to take a happy baby side bend over to the right. And when you come over to the right, maybe you lower your forearm down to the floor. Maybe you lower your forearm down to a block. Maybe your right arm is just completely straight. You choose whatever works for you. Now, some of you will stay right here. Some of you will bend your left elbow and hold your head. And then holding onto your head, you might push down into your right hand, maybe look up just a smidge, and it doesn't have to be big to be impactful. This definitely is a slightly different sensation than what we got under the blanket. And you just pause and you breathe. And when you're ready to come out, the right hand goes out, the right arm reaches up and out and sort of rainbows you up. Great. From here, we'll switch the cross of the ankles, and we'll do that on the other side. So left hand to the left, right arm straight up. When you're ready, happy baby side bend towards the left. And again, maybe you lower the left elbow to the floor, maybe not. Maybe the left arm is completely straight. Option to stay right as you are or bring the back of your hand to the back of your head. And you sort of hold on to your head. And then again, you might push down into the left hand and slightly roll a little bit of your chest more forward and up. And that changes what you feel happening on your right side. Just pause and breathe. Great. When you're ready, the right arm extends out. It rainbows up and overhead and all the way back to the right. Cool. Awesome. Last thing, let's go ahead and remove any flesh from underneath our sit bones. If you would like your blocks, you can use your blocks. We're just going to fold forward over our hips. And you're just going to take a couple of breaths. You'll notice that this is a slightly different hip opening shape. We haven't really done that much hip opening today, but just notice what you notice. Specifically, notice what you notice along the spine, maybe close to the sacrum, maybe even all the way down to your tailbone. Notice what's happening in your outer hips. Great. 2 more breath cycles here. The end of your next exhalation, you'll gently come up. You'll switch the cross of your ankles. Maybe remove any flesh from underneath your sit bones. And then again, you just fold forward, taking a couple of breaths here. You just pause and you breathe and you notice what you notice. And you can play here. You can make your spine round or you can make your spine extended. And it changes what you experience in the hips as well as the vertebra. So you do what works best for you at this moment. Awesome. We've got about 2 more breath cycles here. The end of your next exhalation, you'll start to come up. We'll remove the blocks momentarily, and then just go ahead and extend your legs forward in front of you. You might bring your hands alongside your hips and just sort of puff up your chest like you're taking in the light of the sun on a nice, beautiful day. There's a nice breeze. Great. Okay. Now from here, bend your knees. Draw the soles of the feet together, open wide through the feet and wide through the legs, and maybe hold on to the tops of your toes, outer edges of your feet, and just sit as tall as you can. And again, you might drop an ear to one shoulder or the other. And just pause and you breathe. Fantastic. Okay. Now, at this point, let's go ahead and come to our tall, comfortable seat. So you can sit in Sukhasana. You might sit on a block. You might sit on a blanket. You might sit on your zafu, your meditation cushion. You do have, if you're not sitting on it, that is, you do have your blanket. So you can wrap yourself up. We're going to sit and breathe for a couple of moments. If your space is cold or your body just tends to get cold, you might cover yourself with your blanket. Um, if you're like, yeah, that's not me, you're good. But you'll just take a couple of breaths here now. So before we soften our gaze and close our eyes, make sure your body feels comfortable. So if you need to remove flesh, remove flesh, and then soften your gaze or close your eyes. Plant your arms somewhere where it feels like your heart can remain open. There's not a closing down or a rounding of the chest. And then from here, turn your palms momentarily to face the sky. Tuck your index finger into the base of your thumb. Extend out through the other three fingers. Now, if you're needing inspiration today, your palms will remain facing up. If you're needing grounding, your palms will face down. And then you'll just bring your awareness to your breath. And the first thing is just as we did in all the previous shapes, you're noticing what you notice. It might help to anchor the mind for today if you bring your awareness to the tips of the nose, the nostrils, tips of the nostrils, and just notice the breath as it comes in. And notice the breath as it goes out. And you'll just take a couple more breath cycles here, really feeling what you feel. Maybe keeping your awareness open to the possibility that positively focusing on one thing allows other things to become visible, allows other things to become possible. If you are happy in this shape, by all means, please stay here. Otherwise, you'll start to make your way to your back for Shavasana. If you do come to Shavasana, you might plant the blanket roll underneath your knees, and then the other blanket might cover your body. You might also take Supta Baddha Konasana, soles of the feet together, and using the blocks to support the outer edges of the thighs, and maybe the blanket covering the body. Once you've found yourself into your final shape, take an audible breath in and an audible breath out. From there, allow your breath to just fall back into its natural, involuntary rhythm. As we fall into Shavasana, we fall into the support of the floor, of the relationships of the universe, always there for us. And then for today, we're going to introduce a mantra that you might find helpful. And if so, by all means, please use it. If not, just let it go. The first one is to remind ourselves to be quiet. So when the mind starts to chatter, we just say gently, be quiet, be still, do less, and trust more. Be quiet, be still, do less, trust more. Continue to be here with your breath, maybe with this mantra, and I'll let you know when it's time to come out. Turn your awareness to your breath. As you come back to your breath, just take a moment to check in. If there's any part of you longing to linger in this shape, by all means, please stay here. When you are ready, you'll allow movement to re-enter into your physical form in whatever way feels good to you. Those in stillness, stay as you are. Those in movement, make your way to one of your sides. After you've taken a couple of breaths on your side, you'll start to roll your chest towards the floor. Use your hands to walk your spine up to vertical. And then when you are vertical, I do encourage you to sit on something. And as you're seated, I want to remind us, or maybe introduce the possibility that it's helpful at times to remind ourselves to be quiet, to be still, to do less, and to trust more, because the outer world will often tell us the exact opposite of all those things. But the reality is our worth, our value, the gift that we have, that only we have, only comes from our ability to really listen to that voice within. That voice within that can only be heard when we are quiet, when we are still, when we do less of the things that we think we should do, and we trust more in its inner voice. And so as you're here for these last few moments, these last few breaths, I just invite you to notice what you notice. Reminding ourselves that this is a gift that we can always come back to time and again. We'll close our practice with a collective breath, followed by a collective Om. Bring your hands to heart center, Anjali Mudra. Feel the connection between the palms as they rest into each other. Feel the connection of the thumbs into the sternum and the support of the sternum into the thumbs. Gently exhale all the breath from your mouth. Take a big breath in through your nose. Audible breath out. Inhale for Om. Join if you'd like. Draw your thumbs to your third eye. May our thoughts be clear. Draw your thumbs to your lips. May our words be kind. And draw your thumbs to your heart center. May our hearts be open. The light, the breath, that wisdom and voice within me honors and salutes the light, the breath, the wisdom and the voice within each of you. Namaste.